Morning, welcome to the NRWC. Like Jason mentioned, my name is Dr. Genevieve Reimer, and I have the absolute honor of moderating this panel with three extraordinary individuals and leaders who are not just redefining what reentry looks like, but they are creating equity and innovation in action. Super, super important in this day and age. And what makes this panel so special is that everyone that you're going to hear from today is both a leader and a lived expert. People that have transformed their personal experience into systems change. And we're not here just to talk about second chances. We're here to talk about reforming systems so people don't need a second chance to begin with. And before we get started, I want to do something a little different. They gave me the microphone. I've been known to go rogue, but I'm not going to take us too far. We heard from Jason about the incredible work and the progress of the NRWC, and you're going to hear from these amazing experts shortly. But I want to honor some people in this room right now. If you are comfortable and if you are living with a criminal conviction, please stand up. Stay standing, 1 second. You can stay standing. Stay standing. I want to encourage you for a moment. You are the most important people in this room. You are the change makers, modern day heroes who are wearing your heart on your sleeve instead of a cape. You are using your story and your wisdom and your courage to change systems, friends, that are heavy and that are oppressive, right? And you do it every day when every rejection feels personal and every victory feels like it's for the greater good. It's tough. It's heavy. And you all are doing it every single day using your lived experience to drive change. We see you, we appreciate you, and you are setting the path for thousands of people that are sitting in that cell on that cold metal bunk that we all know too well, that are preparing to walk in your shadows. Keep up the good work, solid work. You can sit down. All right, now on to our incredible panelists. We have the Queen, Terry Minor Spencer, who is the founder. She is coming directly here from Pittsburgh. She is the founder and president of West End Power. She is a community activist, an educator, a relentless advocate for justice and for unity in Pittsburgh. Welcome, Terry. We also have Ty Reed. My friend is a reentry manager at the Washington State Employment Security Department and founder of Recovery Career Services. He is helping to rebuild people's lives through employment and recovery. Welcome, Ty. And we have Marcus Bullock. He is the founder and CEO of Flick Shop. He is an entrepreneur, a technologist, and a national voice for innovation in the justice space. And I'm Jenna, the Senior Director at the Center for Employment Opportunities. We employ about 8,000 people every single year that are on probation and parole. And we are fierce advocates for systems change and reform, like increased gate money and ban the box laws. I'm also the founder of the National Association of Formerly Incarcerated Social Workers. We are incubating it, and we're getting ready to launch it, coming to a town near you soon. I want to ground this session in story and in mission, right? So let's begin with this, and y'all can decide who wants to go first. All of you have lived through transformation, right? Personally, professionally, and now even more so politically. What was one moment that you realized that your story could be strategy for change? Your story could be strategy for change.
I'll go first. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think when I realized that my story could be strategy for change is when I asked for a pass to go out and get registered to vote and was told that I was not allowed to vote. And we're in Pennsylvania. Once you leave the belly of the beast, you are allowed to register to vote. And so right then I realized that if the head of this halfway house don't realize that I have the power to vote, who else does not know that? Yeah. And so that right there, thank you, that right there gave me the sight to understand that ignorance is their power.
Yeah. Amazing.
Oh, yeah, I'll go. I'm not shy. I'll take a microphone. Let me tell you something. I'm trying to be nice up here. I'll take a microphone in a minute. First of all, Jimmy, this was dope. I love the way you opened up. Thank you. I have to take a moment to pause. I've never been in a room where someone asked me to stand up and they clap for me because I had a felony. So shout out to you for doing that. That was dope.
We got more for you. We're just getting started.
I got 3 of them, so for a couple of y'all, All right, my bad. I'm sorry. It's interesting. I want to give context for a bit before I answer that question because I think it's a really important question, especially for all of us that or for those of us that stood up. I think there's an interesting inflection point that happens in most of our journeys when we come home from prison. So mine was a little bit different because when I came home from prison, my mom, she made the decision for me that we would never speak of this thing ever again. Dude, you made it. You home now. Don't you ever in your life utter the words felony ever again in your life. You made it your home. In fact, it was ingrained in me every time I would go apply for a job and I had to check that box, like it was like looming, waiting for me to answer that question, have you been convicted of a felony, before the ban the box era, and I had to check the box, yes, and it was interesting because I was declined for 41 jobs before the 42nd one told me yes, and that was only because it asked me, have you been convicted of a felony within the last 7 years? I had just served an 8-year prison sentence, so I was like, no, I have not been convicted of a felony within the last 7 years. And they gave me a job, right? And it was cool because it was at a paint store and I was mixing paint, you know what I mean? And then as a result of me mixing paint, I started a painting business and that painting business grew. And over the time, having a painting business, then I started another tech company, which I own now, Flick Shop. I hope you guys come and see us at the vendor booth later. Shout out to Blood. But after I launched Flick Shop, at no point during that time would I say that I had been to prison. When I was walking to people's homes and I was giving estimates to paint their homes or remodel their kitchens, there was no way on God's green earth that I was going to tell Ms. Johnson that I just came home and was living in CLC 12 when I'm about to slide this proposal for $20,000 across this counter. It was no possible way. And it's interesting because even when I launched Flick Shop, which is designed to help families stay connected to people who are in prison, I would still tell people ask me, well, how do you know so much about people in prison? Well, I got friends, that's been there. Growing up where I grew up, you know a lot of people that went to jail, And they would understand, right? And it was one lady where I was somewhere and I was talking to her. And she was asking me the question. She said, Marcus, I want to tell you something. I know you probably will never really understand what this app has done for me and my family. You see, my son is in prison right now, and I don't have the ability to be able to accept all these collect calls. And it's so hard for me to share each one of these moments that I have with my family outside of these walls with him while he's still there. And every time I get a chance to send one of your postcards to him, it makes him smile, and it makes my heart feel so warm every time. And I know you'll never understand this because you said you had some friends in prison. but for those of us who actually been through it, this is really, really meaningful. So my nephew was standing there beside me. He was like, you got to tell her, Unc. You got to tell her. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. I need her to keep using the app. She don't need to. And so, and she kept going on, and she talked about her being a mother and how she cared for her son. And all I could think about was my mom, who was my superhero and allowed for me to be able to keep the mental fortitude to fight through one of the hardest times of my life. And I knew in that moment that my story would potentially power her with ammunition that will allow her to walk through the world with hope that maybe her son could come home and be something similar to me. And so I went out there. Thank you, I appreciate you. So I went out there, I jumped out there, and I started to allude. Don't clap for me yet, because I started to allude to, I'm like, yeah, well, you know. I've once before, had some brushes in with, I just came home from serving 8 years in maximum security prison. I had some brushes in with the law once before, so I understand. And so she goes on to keep talking, and I'm like, you know what? And I just full out tell her, listen, the reason why I started this app is because my mom, she wrote me letters and sent me pictures when I was in prison and it saved my life. And I hope and pray that every user of this tool feels the same warmth that I felt every time my name was called. She was like, you was in prison before? Why didn't you tell me that? Anyway, so my point is, so some of you guys may be in positions where you might be remodeling kitchens where it may not behoove you to be able to share your story outside of this room. But you may have that inflection point where your story may not just be there to help you escape some of the trauma that you experienced by expressing outwardly what you went through and the experience that led you to your lived experience to build the solutions that are changing lives. But there may be a way for you to change and help shape someone else's world. And I take that, actually, if you don't take anything else away from this conference this week, is that your lived experience, sometimes it ain't just for you. Sometimes it's for the neighbor that's next to you that never knew that they knew you existed.
Damn, Marcus, I should have gone second. I don't know how I'm going to follow that, but I'm going to give it a shot. So I'm going to share something that was not on my biography. Number one, good morning, everybody. I'm very happy and honored to be here. I appreciate the opportunity that NRWC has given me to sit on the stage with these great panelists and to be with all of you this morning. What you did not hear in my biography: former crack addict, former meth addict, homeless for 2 years on the street, committed to a mental institution, did a bunch of jail time. Only didn't make it to prison. It wasn't because I didn't try to make it to prison, because they only catch you for about 10% of what you did, right? But the truth is that I was very lucky that I didn't make it to prison. Also survived a couple of suicide attempts, got sober in 2016, and things have gone much better since then. Now, the reason why I want to start with that is because one of the things that I've chosen to do with my life now is to live very transparently. Because quite frankly, for about 15 years of my life when I was in active use, I lived my life as two people. During the day, I was one thing, and at night, I was another thing completely. Some of you in the room might be able to relate to that. So there were two moments for me that let me know that maybe this experience that I had might be able to make a difference in other people's lives. The first moment was immediately after I got sober in 2016, I was doing what a lot of the people that we serve do. I was out there trying to find work, and I was finding over and over again, Marcus, I love how you talked about you got a yes on the 42nd try. I also had lots of companies that I applied for where I was definitely qualified for the job. Multiple companies actually told me I was the most qualified applicant that they had seen, but they couldn't hire me because of my criminal convictions. And quite frankly, I've been very lucky in work history and education. So I started to think, if it's going to be this difficult for me, what might that journey be like for other people? And the first job I was able to get was $12 an hour working part-time as a janitor. And that was a job that I hated at the time because I thought I was too good for it. But in hindsight, that turned out to be the best thing for me for a variety of reasons. Mainly, it gave me purpose. It gave me a reason to show up somewhere. I was making legal money for the first time in a while. And I also had this sense of pride that came with being accountable and being able to be counted on to show up and do what I was supposed to do. So that was the first one when I thought, maybe down the road somewhere, I don't know what it's going to look like, but maybe I could use the experiences that I've been through in order to help other people. The second experience was after I'd been sober for about a year. After working that part-time job as a janitor for a while, I landed a job at a small manufacturer doing outside sales. And again, I lived my life very transparently as a person who's in recovery with the experiences that I've had. And so my new employer knew this. And there happened to be a coworker who was having some alcohol problems. He was coming to work drunk. And he would maybe show up sober, but at lunch he'd leave and he'd come back smelling like alcohol. And the company really liked him. He'd been around for about 10 years and they really valued him. So I was honored to have them step in and actually ask me to be a peer to this person. I didn't know what a peer was at the time. They asked me if I'd go to some AA meetings with him. And I said, sure. And it just kind of happened to make a difference. Not because I knew what I was doing, but I think it was because he was just genuinely looking for someone that could relate to the experiences that he was going through. I didn't come to learn what a peer was for another 3 years, but at that moment, I kind of filed that away with, oh, this employment experience that I had might be something where people might have a need. And oh, by the way, I can also now relate to other people who might be in recovery. And so those are really the two moments for me that let me know that maybe someday these experiences that I've had might be able to make a difference in someone else's life.
Amazing. I feel like we should just move the table out of the way and like form a big circle and tell a lot of stories. I found myself like even thinking like, oh, what was my first job? I remember I worked as a temp. Right? Couldn't get a job anywhere else, worked as a temp, no benefits, started the earliest, worked the latest, did all that stuff because I just needed a shot. You know, and that job as a temp allowed me to go back to school. See, back in 2006, times were much different when I came back from incarceration. There was no NRWC. There was no ban the box, right? It was a really different time. And so, you know, we all have these stories. I hear Terry talking about living in the reentry home, and I can like vividly picture what that looks like, what that feels like, what that smells like. You know, there's power in storytelling. You know, so I just want to thank you all for getting us started on such a human-centered note. And I just look forward to the next, 40 minutes or so. And we're going back to the Queen, Terry. I have a question for you. I don't know if y'all are ready for this morning, but we're just gonna kick it off. So Terry, you call the criminal legal system the old time machine that keeps recycling harm.
Yes, yes.
I don't know if you guys are ready. I'm gonna say it again. Terry calls the criminal legal system the old time machine that keeps recycling harm.
Yes.
If you could stop these gears for just a moment, what change would you make first?
Ooh, the very first change would tap into no cash bail. It would tap into healing and not harming. It will tap into restorative and not re-sharing the hurt of that. So what our system does, I was speaking to a young lady at her table, and we were talking about how the system is not broken, how the system is working exactly how it is designed to work. And so I think that when I say the old time machine, it's that saying when we continue to do, when in a room, when you hear, you continue to do the same thing over and over and over, and expecting different results. And what our system do is continue to cause the harm without the heal. And so we have our men, women, families, and communities affected by this system that causes harm with no sight of where to go to heal. And so that will be the very first, the gear and pump the brake would be the cash bail and the heal and no more harm.
How are you living this out right now?
Yeah.
What does this look like in practice? How are you leading people in the community to stop
Yeah.
the old time machine for just a second?
Being extremely authentic. I can work with practically anyone. What I cannot be is used. So as long as we are authentic, that I'm sitting at this table to make sure that there is going to be an adjustment when we rise from this table, especially when I'm sitting with policymakers or pastors or community leaders and stakeholders. I want to make sure that everyone is heard, because we all don't have to agree to respect and to come to one sound, one band. We all want one thing, and that is to heal from this criminal justice system and to be gainfully employed, to be at board tables and to make decision-making rules, right? And so being my authentic self, being extremely unapologetic, and keeping the very foremost, the reason that I'm here is for the people that you can't hear because we left them behind. And so that is how I maneuver through this lane that I'm in.
And while you're maneuvering, you have a sense of responsibility to bring people together.
Yeah.
Right? So you are bringing together people with lived experience. You are bringing together faith leaders. You are bringing together system players to all sit at the table together. And historically, maybe some of these stakeholders have been divided.
Oh, yeah.
How have you created unity? What's a strategy that you could give us to create unity amongst divided
Yeah.
stakeholders?
Yes, absolutely. So for here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, it was a struggle at first, but I'm going to say that what works is consistency. Being extremely consistent with making the appointment and staying on point of this is why I'm here. This is the reason that I'm here. I'm not here for a grant. I'm not here for grant funding or to belittle anyone or uplift anyone to make them, the star, but to make sure that I stay on point of who I am authentically and who I'm fighting for. I'm always, any room that I'm in, I'm always going to be fighting for the women, the men, and the families that we left behind. I still go inside. I go inside the county jail, and matter of fact, we just got 142 people registered to vote. Woo woo. And it's to always just make sure, especially with church and politics, that probably was one of the hardest tables to sit at. But the table has been formed, and it's extremely powerful. Like I said, we just went into the county jail, and that was the religion. That was BPEP, Black Political Empowerment Project, the League of Women Voters. And so this is the League of Women Voters is predominantly, they're national, but they're predominantly a white group of women. BPEP is predominantly all black men, and then the pastors is mixed race. And so we had a really, really great lunch. That was a really great conversation, but we have been in partnership now for over 7 years. So it works.
Love it.
Yes.
I love how you circled it all back. You talked about, your own experience with registering to vote, and then you went right back into that prison cell and registered more people to vote. That's
Yes.
amazing. Marcus, we're going to go over to you. Terry talked about leadership, authentic leadership, right? And I want to hear from you about how you are using your leadership to turn harm into healing, to transform harm into healing for others, maybe for yourself. I'm just giving this to you, and I know you're going to take it somewhere. So what does that look like?
Yeah. Harm in the leadership. It's interesting because who ever would have thought, that I would be sitting in a place like this, man. I'm healing in this moment.
Yeah.
Nah, it's dope. I'm healing in this moment. I posted that on my Instagram stories. If you don't follow me, you should follow me on Instagram. Follow me at Marcus Bullock. I'm on Instagram and all of your social channels.
You can also follow me, Jenna, the social worker.
You gotta keep going after him.
Word. If y'all don't know one thing about it, we having the time of our lives up here. We gonna have fun. I hope y'all having fun with us. I posted this on my stories the other day. I said, I was posting a story of my son and I. We were sitting at dinner at a Chinese restaurant, and the caption was, "I'm healing," and it was mostly because we were celebrating his 15th birthday, and one of his birthday gifts, I took him to a football game, and after the game, we went to dinner, and it was interesting because a lot of that trip, he thought that what he was experiencing was for him and the celebration for him. And now, if I'm being honest, I did mask it that way. Hey, happy birthday, you going to a football game? I'm gonna go with you. But you gonna go to a football game. You're gonna take you to a really nice restaurant. I'm gonna go with you. But you're gonna go to a nice restaurant. And a lot of that, he was super excited. He would tell you if he was sitting here, it was the best birthday of his life. He turned 15 years old, and I was so excited to be able to have that experience with him. But a lot of it really was for my own healing. I went to prison for carjacking when I was 15 years old. And about a few weeks after my 15th birthday, I was standing in front of a judge. And a few months later, I was standing in front of that same judge listening to him sentence me to those 8 years in maximum security prisons. And as a 15-year-old that went through one of the hardest times of my life, not only was it damaging for me and my psyche, but it was damaging for my entire family. See, a lot of us, going back to all of us that stood up, a lot of us, we're realizing now and looking back in hindsight that when we went to prison, it wasn't just us that went to prison. Everyone that loved us went to prison with us. And it was not only a harmful experience for me and for my mom and my grandmother and my sister and my aunts and uncles and cousins, but it still is harmful in ways that I didn't realize that my trauma would transfer even after I've been home from prison. The way that my tendencies show up as a result of the experiences that I had when I was there still continue to impact my life in interesting ways, and they show up in ways that I don't know if my son realizes. It's an interesting way to think about the way that how I was harmful in a scenario with a man when I stole his car, and with the apparent reciprocity that the government felt that they needed to experience by going to prison for those 8 years, and the harm that did for me. But now I'm trying to figure out how to leverage each one of these moments and do, like you said later, just pause the gears for a moment and be like, yo, look, man, I'm gonna drink this cup of coffee and know that in this moment, I'm healing now.
Yeah. This is healing.
This is healing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And shout out to you, Jason, and entire in our WC team for giving us space, to be able to have this moment. I'm blessed to be able to speak around the world, and most times than not, I'm in spaces where corporate partners, they hire me to give talks about marketing strategies or sales strategies, or I'm talking about startup success, or we're a venture-backed company, so how are we leveraging business even to be able to show up in interesting ways? And I get a chance to lead those conversations, but I don't get a chance to be able to lead them and talk about my lived experience in a way that I'm able to show up here for the fourth time. This is healing.
Yep. I had my plan. Here's where I go rogue, right? I had my plan. I had all my questions charted out. But we're going to take a little turn real quick, because I have a question that I wanted to ask you all at the end. But since you were talking, Marcus, about people bringing you into the room and Jason allowing us to share space, right? I was going to ask everyone at the end, but I'm going to ask it right now, and then we're going to go back to the individual questions. Here we go. So.
Don't you just love a good moderator?
I love this question, but I don't know if y'all are ready for it, but we're going to do it anyways. So what advice would you give to organizations that say they want to center lived experience, but don't yet know how to share power? What advice would you give to organizations that say they want to center lived experience, but don't yet know how to share power? And this is for all of y'all.
I'll jump on that one. And again, we got to switch up this order. I can't keep going after Marcus. This is absolutely ridiculous.
I like how he said, I'm going to jump in. And then I'd have a question for him. What evidence have you shown so far that that's what you want to do? What steps have you already taken before people like us show up in the room to start having these conversations that this is really something that you're dedicated to? And what links are you actually willing to go to bring this to fruition? Because a lot of people talk a good game. Everybody in this room has been in spaces with folks that talk a really great game about wanting to center people with lived experience in what they do and to have those voices in the room. But at the end of the day, there's no follow-through. We had a nice lunch, and that's all we had. We had some really great conversation and got voices of the community, but that's all that really happened. There was no action behind it. There was no funding behind it. And so my first question would be those couple things.
As far as advice goes, something that I'm sure everybody's going to point out is get as many voices in the room as you can, including voices that make you really uncomfortable, right? We can get people in the room that are going to, say, oh, we think it's great for you to make this effort, or it's so admirable for you to want to do this for folks. But how many people in the room are actually getting challenged in their mindsets, in the ideas that they have?
Yeah. I would, my suggestion would be to pay us fairly, put us on the board, we're more than a storytelling. We are, as Jason has said, we are most loyal, and we're going to stay longer, and we're going to get there before everybody else. And so I think that my suggestion would be change listening patterns. Yeah, we're some powerful people.
Absolutely.
And when we give our all.
Yep.
Right? And when we work hard. Mm-hmm. And so because we're taught we have to stand out. Right? We have to stand taller, our back got to be straighter, and our head got to be higher. And so I would ask organizations and corporations to listen more. Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to speak to some of the potential corporate leaders in the room. Let's do this. I'll make sure see if we any money. If you're in a leadership role and you're in a for-profit organization, would you please stand up? Okay. Cool. All right. Cool. So you guys are ambassadors. Okay, you can sit down now.
I can't stand him.
Got a lot of activity happening. Our blood flowing this morning.
And you notice y'all didn't get applause like the fellas in the room. Just joking. We love you. All right. So I love this question because I want to speak to the corporate, I want to speak to the leaders, and then because you guys are ambassadors, but all of the other folks who have opportunities to be able to speak to corporate leadership, because I think that specifically for-profit businesses have an interesting space and a dynamic inside of, specifically in our country, in the way that our country works, and interestingly enough, how the political system affects the criminal justice system. Now, here's the interesting thing, right? I promise, I know I'm long-winded. I promise you I'm not going to be long, I promise you. But here's the thing. The reason why I want to point out to you all is because, and I'm talking to the ambassadors for a quick second, you all are the ones who have the ability to be able to really shape how this space rolls down the hill. Right? You guys impact the policy decisions, and you guys give opportunities for folks to be able to remain gainfully employed so they can not only support their families but their communities in a very interesting way. Now, our nonprofit leaders are incredible, and they do all of the amazing work that powers and more times than not unifies our country in interesting ways. But you for-profit leaders, you guys are not driven by, more times than not, the impact of your work. You're driven by the bottom line and the fiduciary responsibility that you have to your shareholders probably to be able to deliver on a success metric. Now, I'm going somewhere, and you for-profit people, you probably understand this vernacular, this language, but I'm going somewhere, and this is important. There's an interesting responsibility that you have to be able to not only impact a policy, but more times than not, I understand that the folks who are in those roles are typically technical people. You guys are tacticians, and you see your role as an interesting role to allow for the people in the room to help support your roles as other technical people. And the problem with that is that you don't oftentimes have access to people like me that come out of neighborhoods in sales that I came out of. And so because of your lack of proximity to people like me, you're not able to actually really bring the people in the rooms like the aforementioned talked about when we said we need more jobs, and more specifically, we need more leadership roles. And if you didn't catch this, I need to really make sure that we don't just parenthesize it, but we put bold letters around it. We need members on your boards. Now, because you're technical more times than not, and you're wondering about the value add that these potential board members will be able to bring to your organizations, there's a little bit of apprehension that you may have around bringing folks in. But let me assure you that entrepreneurs like me who run venture-backed companies, who've raised millions of dollars, and also have employed other people who've come out of sales like me, I'm not an anomaly.
That's right.
I'm not a unicorn. There's so many freaking amazing, innovative geniuses that I watched somebody in a cell I lived in take a Walkman motor and some guitar string and make a tattoo gun and use some pencil lead and make slit out of it and give tattoos on the prison rec yard. I watched the level of ingenuity inside of these cells that took a milk bag, some water, some rice, some flour, some sugar. Some of y'all know the recipe, but they made something that made bullet bourbon put it to shame. The ingenuity that comes out of these cells shows that there's not a lack of brilliance, but more times than not, there's a lack of access and social capital. You gatekeepers, the ambassadors after today, are the ones who are giving the access. You, all the people around us here, you guys, they are the social capital that I need you to extend yourselves to. And if you're looking for ways in order to figure out how to be able to do it, become more proximate.
Yep.
And if you become more proximate, you'll understand that there are dope people in the rooms that can add a tremendous amount of value to your organizations. Imagine those 41 people that told me no when I was applying for jobs. I mean, we had shoe stores. You know how many pairs of Jordans I would have sold? And they told me, nah, they're lost. And you guys have the opportunity to win in big ways.
That's right.
Ty, you're next.
I'm gonna stop talking. I'm sorry.
Ty,
You know that's a lie. You lying.
Ty, I'm actually coming to you.
Yeah.
Ty, so we know that Marcus is reaching into prisons, right, and creating connection through postcards and pictures and family and bringing purpose behind the prison bars and into prison cells. If you've never been there, you're lucky, but it's a really, really, really dark place and lonely place to be.
Yeah.
To me, when I was incarcerated, like, I could do time, right? Doing time is not a problem. But it's the feeling of helplessness and hopelessness that's associated with it that you will never know until you've actually been there. There's no words that anyone can use to appropriately describe the sense of hopelessness and helplessness that you feel when you are locked up. That first time you hear that door, whoop, and you're like, oh, it's on. It's a different feeling, right? And you are disrupting that by bringing postcards of families' pictures into the prison cells. We have Terry, who's in the community, stirring things up, stirring action. And we have Ty, who's working within a system that wasn't really designed with reentry in mind, right? It wasn't designed to be that way. So we have Ty, who is transforming systems from within. And what does it take, Ty, to make real change from within a system?
Great question. Thank you. So let me first of all be very clear, and I'm not just contractually obligated to say this. I feel very lucky to work for who I work for. The state of Washington is a very progressive state. They have been thinking about reentry for a long time. Our last governor actually signed us on to be part of Reentry 2030, which some of you in the room probably know about. So I feel very lucky to be working on that initiative and in many ways helping to lead that initiative. There are a couple of things, though, that for other agencies that I think are important is possible ways to bring change. So number one, the way that I was transparent here, to be transparent in other spaces within big systems. And to simply be present in some cases, because just your presence can be disruptive for some folks. So first of all, you've got to have systems that give you an opportunity to do that. I feel very lucky. There are a number of people that work inside the Employment Security Department, where I am employed, that are openly folks that are recovering from addiction and recovering from the criminal justice system. So I feel incredibly lucky to do that. The other thing that I think is really important, and I'll mention this for folks who may just be starting their employment journey, again, or maybe for the first time, is mentorship. And being very active in seeking out mentorship. So sometimes, you'll get lucky and mentors will find you. But in some cases, you need to be actually active about going out and finding those mentors. And I've been lucky enough to be able to find a mentor who is a person who he does not feel as comfortable being transparent. I realize that I'm a little unique in how transparently I live my life. I understand not everybody's like that. But he is someone who is a leader in state government who also has been impacted by the criminal justice system. And he's been very instrumental in helping me figure out who I should make connections to and the spaces where I should be in order to help affect change. And then the last thing that I would say is, so I'm going to ask a quick question here. So who's here from Georgia? Anybody? Give it up. Dirty Bird in the back. Appreciate you. All right. So there's the GA. I know a bunch of people are going to answer this. Who's here from Pennsylvania? Okay. So there's the PA. So GA, PA. Gentle and persistent agitator. So be a gentle and persistent agitator in those spaces. And sometimes that means I simply show up or someone else might show up in a space. And really the job in that space is to make people think critically about the beliefs that they have. Is to make people analyze the things that we're saying and put in a context to their lives. And that can be done in a number of ways. But the other thing is also, I'm going to guess there's some people in here that have the ability to read a room. Because that's kind of a survival skill, right? It also comes with reading the room and knowing when you have the opportunity to not be so gentle. Maybe you're not just asking people to think differently, you're actually challenging them about the beliefs that they have, because there are some wonderful people that work in state government in Washington, in my agency in Washington, but there also are a number of people that still are carrying pretty significant discriminatory views against those who have been impacted by the criminal justice system. And so sometimes it comes back to challenging those views. What evidence do you have of that? Maybe you have a personal experience, but really, what evidence do you have of that? That people aren't going to be loyal, and people are going to steal from you, and people are not going to be, why are you uncomfortable working with this particular, we call them customers at our American Justice Centers. Why do you feel uncomfortable working with these customers? Where's your proof of that? And so I really think those three things are the key, at least for me, with working within a system to be able to try to affect some change.
Love it. Thank you. I wouldn't be a good nonprofit leader if I didn't at least talk about impact once. So we're going to do it once. And, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Jackson, and I was there with a bunch of community leaders, and this one woman said something that I'll never forget, and she goes, resources are scarce right now, so we have a bunch of community leaders all focused on violence interruption, but because resources are scarce, we find ourselves like crabs in a bucket, fighting over what exists, because their community is so important to them, but they realize that there's not enough to go around, right? And so when they were once locking arms, they are now in the trenches with each other. And it's hurtful, right? Because we know ultimately who that's going to impact, right? And also in the nonprofit sector, sometimes we can find ourselves like chasing funding this way, or we start going this way to chase funding, right? We have mission drift because we need funding to secure our program. And a lot of our funders have a lot of quantifiable metrics that measure impact, right? But Ty, I want you to talk a little bit more about qualitative metrics that lend to success and to impact. For example, what does dignity, belonging, and sustainability look like if you were to use that as a measure of success?
Wow, back to back and before Marcus.
Glad she gave that one to you.
Right. So I actually think that, so anybody in the room fighting for funding right now? Anybody? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, everybody's laughing. Yeah, of course, fool. Okay. So I think there's a couple of things. From a metric standpoint, I understand, I don't like, but I understand why funders set up the metrics that they do, right? They need to feel like they're measuring some kind of quantitative outcomes. But I really like to see what I'd like to see more of is that we focus more on what the customer thinks success is, right? Because we have what our metrics for success are, and what our funders say that success should look like. But what does the customer think, the participant think that success really is? Because that looks different for every single person. I would love for us, from a dignity and a human-centered standpoint, to be able to kind of make that more prevalent. The other thing, and I'm gonna use a couple people somebody I know and somebody that I just met. I'm gonna talk about you in a second, Rico.
I was going to talk about Rigo. You stole Rigo from me.
Yeah, I'm totally stealing it. So a couple things. I also would love to see for us to be able to measure holistically the type of success that people have, not just around employment. So I'll give you a great example. So I was sitting at a table with Rico at breakfast this morning, and Rico, I'm going to share a little bit of your story if that's okay. Rico has been home for about 90 days after doing 17 and a half years within the prison system in California. And had a wonderful opportunity to sit with him and listen to him talk about his experience and some of the great things that he has done since he's been out. And if you want to hear something really great about removing tattoos from people without using lasers and having it be less painful, you should talk to Rico about this because it's fascinating. So I want to point that out. One of the things he talked about was when people would do resource referrals, what they would do is they would just hand him a flyer and say, hey, this is where you go, this is what you do. And that obviously is not great. It's not warm, right? Now I'm gonna talk about someone else that's in the room. So Dash Wood, who's sitting in the very back, put your hand up, Dash. One of my coworkers at the Employment Security Department. I had an opportunity a few weeks ago to interview Dash for one of the positions that we are hiring for as we bring employment services back into prison facilities in Washington State. And I asked, the question was, when you do handoffs, how do you keep those handoffs warm? Right? And Dash had a really, really great answer. He said, well, the first thing that I do is that when I'm sitting with our customer, I call the resource with the customer there. If they're virtual, if it's a conference call, I do a 3-way call with the customer, and I reach out and I set an appointment with the resource. And that was great, and I thought Dash was done, but he was not done. And then what I do is I figure out exactly who they're going to be referred to at the resource, and then I can give them some information. What the example that Dash used, because again, I thought he was going to stop, but he kept talking, it was a great answer. He said, if I find out that they're going to meet with Johnny, what I tell him is, okay, Johnny's kind of an introvert, he's not very social. So he might not come across as warm and fuzzy, but Johnny's really, really knowledgeable, and he's helped a bunch of people that I've sent to him. So it's not you if you show up and Johnny doesn't treat you exactly like you're his best friend. But he's got a lot of resources, and you should stick with Johnny. And oh, by the way, here's how the process works within that organization. So Dash knows that organization so well that he knows not only what our process is and can map that out for the customer, he knows what every resource's process is and can map that out for the customer as well. And to me, that is what a warm handoff looks like.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right?
No doubt.
And so when we're talking about connecting people with resources, I wish that funders would take into account holistically what other resources were they connected to and what were those outcomes, right? So because we obviously know that folks who have been impacted by the criminal justice system, sure, they need employment, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with employment that impacts the way that they show up on the job.
That's right. And
those are the things that we need to think about, and I wish that we could center more when it comes to measuring impact and success.
I love it.
Yeah, that was great. That was dope.
So when I was talking to Rigo, because I was going to share this story, but I'm going to share. But we're both talking about Rigo. Rigo told me that he just came home 3 months ago, and the first thing that came to my mind is, wow, how difficult is it to be in a room full of folks that look like us and trying to speak our language when for the past 18 years you spoke. We have our own dialect in jail. You spoke a language that was familiar to you, that everyone else was speaking while you were incarcerated.
Yeah.
And to have to do that code switch. I remember when I went to my first interview, I was borrowing my mom's clothes because I didn't have anything. I got released with nothing except a big dream and a hope that I was never going to go back there again, no matter what. And I was wearing my mom's clothing, and I tried to speak a language that I thought the interviewer wanted to hear. And not only was I uncomfortable in my physical body because I was wearing my mom's clothes, but I was uncomfortable in my spirit because I was trying to be someone that I knew I wanted to be, but I was so far from in that moment. You know, so it's real to sit here 3 months after release
Yeah.
and to be in a room, you know, where we're talking about all of us, right? And this transformation that's happening. So, Rigo, we're so glad that you're here with us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, man.
All right, we're going to open it up. We have about 15 minutes for questions. And then I have one question for us to close with. There's 2 microphones here. So if anyone has any questions, you want to go to the microphone? We have one brave soul. Maybe we'll have a few more.
Wow, and thank you to start. You all are absolutely amazing. And I have this, I'm formulating and thinking about something as you all were speaking that I'd love to hear your particular thoughts about and or approaches to. So, I'm from North Carolina, or I'm here representing North Carolina, and intersectionality, because of Reverend Barber, that's a term in terms of intersectionality between movements, right? I mean, people tend to hold multiple identities. They tend, you know, there's just a lot of cross-sectioning around people who are on the margins, et cetera. And so in the spaces that we work, I work for a direct service organization in North Carolina. And hearing you all talk about all of the things that are so much more extreme for people who are returning citizens. And I'm struck that this is true for all folks on the margins in many ways, in terms of the ways that we treat people who are not in power, who you know, are part of communities that are not the dominant culture. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder how you all approach intersectionality with folks who don't have criminal justice convictions, because a lot of folk in power, you know, it's like, and I see you nodding, sister, because I think you understand what I'm grappling with is, do you find yourself siloing more to break down the barriers that we know are so much more extreme for people with criminal convictions? Or do you find yourself working with other folk who are in poverty, who are you know, not around tables and the like, because of other factors that you also hold?
Yeah.
Right? Education and economic, you know, class issues and all of that. And so I'm just wondering how you approach it, because it seems even more now that there are all of these excuses for not serving and focusing on people with criminal convictions. And so how do you find yourself, you know, speaking to it, justifying it, focusing on it, prioritizing it, and the like? So I hope that's more thought than it is anything else. But anything that you could share about how you hold that, I'd appreciate hearing.
Thank you for that question. I know for me, I approach, I strongly believe that everyone is affected by incarceration. When, you know, Marcus has said, when we're incarcerated, our whole family's incarcerated. The community is incarcerated, right? So I strongly believe that if someone did not get sentenced and did not go inside the belly of the beast, they know someone who did. And so a neighbor, a cousin, the mailman, the mail lady, you know, the person at the store, someone that we know is affected by incarceration. So that's how I always start the conversation. I know you understand. You know, you may not understand that what roll call means, or what fall count means, or you may not understand those things. You know, now the people who stood up know what fall count. Immediately know what fall count mean. I can come outside and it be a foggy day and my mind clicks, like the people I know is locked in their cell right now because it's foggy outside. But so that's how I choose to get to present myself at a table or conversation. If you don't know that you are affected by incarceration, by the time we get done conversating, you're going to understand you are affected by incarceration. Did that answer your question? It did enough. Okay.
All right, we have time for 2 more questions, so go ahead.
Oh, hi, everybody. I'm Malia from Michigan, Detroit specifically. Thank you so much for everything that you brought and offered to us this morning. And thank you, Jenna, for your excellent moderating. This question is also geared toward Terry. Recently have begun working, actually for the first time in almost a decade of this work, working specifically with women through a Department of Justice Second Chance Act grant. Behind the wall in the Women's Huron Valley, the only state prison we have. We're now wrapped up the enrollment phase and we're trying to support the women outside in the community. We're having difficulty with the engagement and the follow through. The men are like literally at our doorstep, they're at the office before we get there. The women, we're finding it just a little more difficult. So I wonder if you had any advice or tips or strategies on how to connect with and maintain the relationship with the women.
Yeah, thank you for that question. What we did was there's an organization here, a halfway house here, and we tapped in with that halfway house. And so it's called Power, and it's just for women. And so those are the women that we do a 12-week cohort with, soft job skills. But what we do is after the 12 week is over, they're like family. Like they have a outreach worker that 2 times a month, literally they go pick them up, take them to whatever appointments they need to go to, so that we build a relationship. We don't build a work, a partnership. We build a relationship, and once we build a relationship, we can't break up. Like we're forever, like we're in this relationship till we the mob now, you know. So that's what I strongly suggest is to find a organization that only focuses on women and tap in with them.
Amazing.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I have 2 quick follow-up things. One is a shameless, not so shameless plug. At 4:00, I think me and a bunch of my friends and I, we're going to have a panel only focusing on women in reentry and women that have survived incarceration. And so please join us in. And the second thing is go Lions. All right, we only have time for 1 more question. Ison Hugh is already up. So thank you. Go ahead, sir.
So my question is, I did 20 years, and I've been home 6, and I went in high school dropout. I got my GED, AA, BA, and then I got a master's before I got out.
Come on now.
Job-wise, I'm trying to make it real quick. Job-wise, I did okay. I did great. I'm good. But my problem is for me, it's a pressure because everybody that helped me along the way, all the volunteers, all the people that helped me, and I know that a lot of guys behind me are not going to have the same results that I had. And then it's like, how do you deal with the pressures of trying to not get in trouble again, trying to be successful, and then also trying to say, are you doing enough? Are you doing the best you can, or are you where you need to be? How do you deal with those pressures?
I want to take this one. So I just don't think it goes away. I mean, I came home in 2004, so I've been home for 21 years, which is wild to say, but I've been home for 21 years, and I still ask this morning, before I got on the panel, right, I'm still asking myself, am I doing enough? Mm-hmm. How am I being better? How am I showing up? Right? And I think there's something interesting, because I think that what that does is it just signals to your the mindset that you've already baked into, who the ethos of who you are centered around greatness. Like you're okay with not being mediocre, and I think that that's a pressure that a lot of people feel, because for so many years, people who've done years or even people who've done weeks or months, like you've been painted a picture of you being the photo of mediocrity, because you landed inside of this space, whether or not you did it or not. Like you are the definition of mediocrity is how others will have you believe. But we showing up here today to make sure that we counter that myth, and that is not true 100%. And we are going to live inside of that space of excellence. And similarly to how I talk about, the folks that have to find proximity to and I'm having a conversation with me and you, everybody else just being nosy. Sometimes I'm talking to the folks about having proximity to the people, you know what I mean? Like, we have to figure out ways to be able to challenge ourselves to find proximity to the people who we want to be like either. My grandmother used to tell me, birds of a feather flock together. And she wasn't lying. If you hang around 9 other wealthy people, you're bound to be the 10th one. If you hang around 9 other mentally strong people, you're bound to be the 10th one. If you hang around 9 other people that's consistently beating themselves up and wondering whether or not they have gotten to a place where you're going to be the 10th one. And you're going to stay in that space. So make sure, and that's okay, because my grandma always told me, like, and I think it's a gospel song now that says that this now, but it's okay to cry for a night and then get back up tomorrow and get out of that space of mediocrity and push for excellence. The other thing that I want to end up saying, and this is another shameless plug because you did the shameless plug thing. One of the things I think that we do is like, we have this expectation for people to come home from prison and show up and have this level of success, and we're being reactionary to them coming home, and we have these conversations when they come home, and we're hoping and praying that hopefully something that we say or do now that they're here in front of us can help to shape the way their yellow brick road to success looks. And I challenge that as well to say, reentry doesn't start when people come home. Reentry really should start at arrest. And if we're being honest and we're being thoughtful, because here's the reality, a lot of the organizations that are represented in this room, I'm blessed to learn about you guys today because of, what Jason and team have put on. But when I was in cell C12, I ain't know none of y'all existed. You couldn't have gotten me to believe. If somebody came to my cell and said, hey, look, check this out. There's a couple hundred people right now convening in Pittsburgh just to talk about figuring out ways to be able to make sure that you have a successful life after prison, I'd be like, man, stop lying. Beat it. Scram. Ain't nobody out there doing. There's no way you've gotten me to believe that. And so I challenge us now to ask the question, how do we figure out how to get in front of people well before they come home so that we're being a bit more proactive and not reactive to our reentry efforts? Now, if you're looking for a way to be able to connect with populations of people while you're in prison, please come to the Flickshop booth. We would love to be able to connect your organization to tens of thousands of people that are sitting inside of prisons.
Always be closing, Marcus.
I love it. And if you're unfamiliar with the Dovo app, it's on now in jails and prisons. A lot of people have access to tablets while they're incarcerated. And so Dovo offers opportunities to organizations, to people to upload content on the Dovo application that provides instruction. Talk about scale, right? At the Center for Employment Opportunities, we uploaded a course, and we've had almost 300,000 people interact with that course in just a year, right? So what does that mean? It means that people are hungry, right? They want to hear about what this is happening. They may not believe it, right? But they want to know, right? When you're incarcerated, you're reading the fine print. That's the fine print in a magazine. You're reading everything because all you got is time. So filling knowledge, right? Educating, talking about opportunities like sponges. Take advantage of it. We have a little bit more time. Actually, I'm going to end with, we have a final question. And we're going to do dealer's choice. So, do y'all want to talk about holding systems accountable? Whoop, or do we want to talk about giving everyone one small choice or one small piece of advice to leave with? What do y'all want to hear about? Yeah. Advice?
Piece of advice.
Advice? All right, advice. Here we go.
You go first.
So
you want me to go first?
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
I think Jenna had the question before she wanted to ask you the question. Miss Terry, go ahead. This is you and you, Miss Terry. Let's do it.
Okay, here we go.
Home team.
Marcus, come on. You come up here, finish moderating. I'm gonna go over here.
No, what are you talking about? Stop playing.
All right. If everyone in this room could do one small immediate thing after they leave to make reentry more humane. More humane, that's the key word. If you could give advice to make reentry more humane, what should it be?
Change language. And what I mean by that is eliminate the word inmate. Replace it with friend. eliminate the word, use words like neighbor or person or inmate has never been used to uplift nobody. That word inmate has been used to belittle us. It's always, they have never said inmate, you're doing, no, it's always inmate, sit down, inmate, go get over there, inmate. So to change the language and change the way that they conversate with us, build with us. And that would be one of the biggest advices I would give, is to build with us, put us at your board tables, and pay us a fair wage.
I'm going first, Marcus. I would say celebrate everything. We often talk about meeting people where they are, and for the gentleman who just spoke so eloquently about his doing 20 years but along the way achieving so much. Where he's going to be in his journey when he returns to the community is going to be much different than the place that someone else might be in their journey. And so celebrating wins looks different for everybody. So celebrate the very smallest things that you can celebrate. If somebody simply actually showed up to keep an appointment with you, let's pick out a way to celebrate that, right? If somebody, if maybe you told them last week, the conversation they committed to, providing some things on their resume, but they didn't provide them all. Celebrate that one thing that they did.
That's right.
Uplift them as they move throughout their journey. And I know we all try to do this, but really when we say meet people where they are, legitimately try to meet people where they are and celebrate the things that might be big accomplishments for them. Maybe to us they don't feel so great because maybe we're a little jaded, or maybe we've had more advantages than some of the folks we serve will have. But if we can celebrate every accomplishment to keep them engaged in the process and encouraged, that would be the one piece of advice I would offer.
Amazing, Ty. Thank you.
I know this may come as a shock to most of you, but I have nothing. No, I would say, be more. You're like, yo, you lying. No, be more proximate. Yeah, be more proximate.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what I've loved so much about this conversation is that we're not just talking about people coming back and returning to society. We're talking about the broader community returning to values, systems, organization, people, reentry organizations, communities, institutions, right? We need to have a values-driven approach. Thank you all for leading with creativity, with courage, and most importantly, with truth. With truth. Let's give a round of applause for our wonderful panelists.
And you guys give a round of applause for Jenna as well, doing a wonderful job moderating today. Thank you.